today I've been hauling dirt and talking training. Usually a company trains you as a commercial driver in 3 different areas or 3 different ways. There's usually some type of classroom training. Those smaller companies may not have the resources to offer classroom training, but the classroom training is designed to impart knowledge and attitudes. I love telling stories and showing videos of drivers in action. And then you've got some things that are required by the company or by federal or local authorities in terms of safety and rules of the road and things like that. So that's the classroom part. Usually then there is a closed course training component. And once again, depending on the size of the company, they may not have the resources to actually pull off closed course training. When I was a bus driver trainer, we did classroom and then we did closed course. And if students passed those 2 sections, they then moved on to the 3rd part of company-specific training. And that's what you could call cadetting or on-the-road training. And so what I'm doing right now with the dump truck company that I'm working for is on-the-road training. I'm working with a senior driver who is showing me the ropes, helping me to understand how to work the vehicle, how to drive it safely and appropriately. A big thing for me is how to navigate the construction site and eventually the yards where you pick up materials such as rock or sand or dirt. When you work with a senior driver, this is where truly the rubber meets the road. This is where things come alive. For me, this is where you take what hopefully you've learned in the classroom and you start seeing how does it really work. When I was training new drivers, I emphasized that the senior drivers were going to teach more than any new driver could learn in the classroom or on a closed course. Navigating traffic like I have right now, loading and offloading, dealing with the powers that be that impact your work, understanding how work schedules happen and how to be successful and to be perceived favorably by people in your company. Those are things that cannot really be taught in the classroom or by driving around orange cones. Today we were hauling dirt. It was a complicated construction site on one end where we were actually dropping off the dirt. And a long, tight backing course. It reminded me of the test that I set up for new drivers, only there were no orange cones involved. There was an orange dumpster and a red dumpster and a number of pieces of construction equipment, some nice, almost brand new pickup trucks, and I was backing a dump truck between them with maybe a foot or 2 of clearance combined on both sides. It was very stressful. At least twice I put a wheel partly into the ditch. I would argue I knew where it was, and that was maybe true and maybe not true, but that wheel was partly into the ditch. Never dropped a wheel into the ditch, but hey, it was not great. And so that underlined for me the value of driving with a senior driver who who in that situation could help talk me out of the bind I was in. And then later on, he gave me a couple of key nuggets of advice. One I knew but sort of wasn't practicing, which is get the vehicle straight and keep it straight. Don't weave around, don't tinker. Keep it straight. Line it up, keep it straight. When you do classroom training or closed course training with a training professional, a safety manager, the supervisor, they're going to give you the company line. They're going to tell you the policies. They're going to show you the techniques that the company expects you to follow. When you get on the road with a senior driver, you are almost bound to be inundated with a lot of information and a lot of different ways of doing things. And some of those ways of doing things are simply different and often better than what you learned in the classroom. Some of them are different, but maybe not better. Let me give you a simple example, one that I've run into a couple of times. The company policy is always obey the posted speed limit. When you're out driving with a senior driver on a transit route, often they will say you cannot stay on time unless you speed. I have never argued with a senior driver on that point. But my personal values, attitudes, beliefs, expectations, and experiences are it's never worth speeding. In my personal vehicle, I will admit at times I will exceed the posted speed limit. So when I'm driving a commercial vehicle, I obey the speed limit. A senior driver saying, hey, you can't do this job unless you speed, I take in. I do not argue with them. That's not my role. I'm the rookie. I'm the new kid. Who am I to lecture someone who's been with the company for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? So I take it in. I think about it seriously, but I've never come to the conclusion that, okay, fine, whatever, I'll speed. Another example, almost every formal training program will have something about how do you deal with conflict in the workplace, conflict with passengers, with customers. For driving a dump truck, I would guess it would be conflict with fellow drivers, conflict with the people on the construction site or the material yard. When you get in the real world and you're driving with a senior driver, they may tell you something different or show you something different. And once again, your values, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations may be different. And I'm not gonna give you an example nearly as clear-cut as the speed limit, at least for me. But I will tell you that I have worked with people who are gracious and kind to everyone, who solve problems, who have just a great rapport with their fellow drivers and with the customers or passengers they deal with. And I've worked with other people who have often had something important in their life that makes them quick to stand up for themselves. And both ways of living your life, I think, can be important, valid. A life of integrity, either being gracious and kind and forgiving and flexible, or having that capability to stand up for yourself. I myself have done both in my life. Sometimes I've regretted either standing up for myself when I shouldn't have, or being overly kind and flexible when I should not have. But in general, I believe in being kind, generous, and flexible, and then standing up for yourself when certain lines are crossed. My point is not how to resolve conflict as a driver, but rather you're going to bring your values, attitudes, beliefs, expectations, and experiences in, and whatever the classroom says or whatever the senior driver says, you don't erase yourself. You're going to do what you need to do for your own sense of who you are. So, listen to the senior driver. Watch them. Practice as best you can what they're saying works, what they're saying you ought to be doing. But carry yourself into that. Think hard. Evaluate. Test whether this thing that I'm being asked to do is consistent with who I am and who I am becoming. So I talked with my boss a few minutes ago. I'm scheduled to haul dirt tomorrow as a trainee with my senior driver. We're going to be working the same site. I've learned today, and I hope to learn even more tomorrow, on how to navigate a difficult and complicated construction site, and those other things that I don't even know that I need to learn that will pop up tomorrow. I hope to engage them. I hope to lean into them and not perfect my driving, but move it a little further in the right direction. And so the job, I said I talked to my boss, and I did, but the job actually popped up for the first time on my senior driver's company smartphone, and it came directly from Iron Sheepdog. Thank you, Iron Sheepdog. I enjoy the work. If you like what you see here, you can subscribe to our channel, you can like the video, you can talk to your friends, to fellow drivers, or whoever else, and point them in our direction. Appreciate any and all comments. I attempt to respond as much as possible. I hope you'll continue to drive along with me as we look to fill the dump truck toolbox.